is it not no longer intentional because now there's so many other distractions? We're not in a terribly religious society and things are secularized. And is it now worrying about how do I get my kids to focus on religion and Catholicism when at every moment they could be playing Angry Birds and watching TV and doing 1,000 other things?
And it's all of that. It's all of that. Well, how did you come by your faith, Matt? I mean, in the midst of that kind of world.
So I feel like I was the last generation to actually grow up without the internet. So I was born in 1983, and I felt like I grew up in a very devout Catholic family. And there weren't as many distractions. And then right when I hit high school, that stuff kind of came out. But I worry about that. You know, I'm recently engaged to my fiance is right over there. Quick plug for her. She's embarrassed now, but you know, I'm going to have kids one day with her, and like. It scares me to try and raise my kids the way I feel like my parents raised me, which I thought was a holistically beautiful, wonderful faith life.
Yes.
And it worries me to make sure that, how do I make sure I give to them as much as my parents gave to me?
Matt, I would say do what your parents did, even if it's adjusting the practices. Like, there's no surefire way to do this. I often say Teddy may grow up to be a Jesuit or an atheist, and there's no guarantee.
Do you have a preference?
Well, there are people who think he could be both, but we won't go there.
We are recording.
Of course, I'm joking, of course. But you see, say morning prayers with them. Say grace before meals, say night prayers, have the rituals, whatever the rituals might be. And we can go back into our old traditions and find rituals, you know, for Christmas, for Easter, and what have you. And that can still, I think, can still work. Now, not to be unrealistic about all of the, you know, the communications, media, and what have you, but you see, the Catholic attitude is that that's not a bad world. It's not as if there's a technology world out there that's bad and we have to avoid it. So we're not Amish or Mennonites, and they're dear people and wonderful Christians, but that's not our tradition. We see everything as being capable of giving honor and glory to God, and indeed of being engaged in order to nurture people in faith. It does take intentionality. The late Cardinal Lustager, the Cardinal Archbishop of Paris, used to say, and I remember one of his famous sermons, that in some ways it's a tremendously challenging time for faith. In our secularized society, in our very difficult technologized world and so on. On the other hand, his comeback was, but it's a marvelous time for faith. It's a great time for chosen faith, for faith that we deliberately choose to pass on and organize our lives in order to do so. So in the home, you begin to watch everything because they pick up everything. You watch your language patterns and how you talk about yourselves, how you talk about other people. How is racism passed on? How is sexism passed on? How is militarism passed on? Or what John Paul II called economism. In other words, that money and possessions are the ultimate idol. Well, it's passed on through our language patterns in the home. And you can then look at every aspect of family life to recycle well. I mean, it's a care for the environment. So we're still capable of teaching those great Catholic values that our parents taught us. We just have to be more imaginative and more intentional and perhaps adjust what we do. It can be done.
Yeah, and for me a little bit, you know, I don't look at technology as something that's averse to religion, but it, you know, if you look at the history of the Catholic Church and how fantastic they were as communicators.
Sure.
For us to not be utilizing the best of technology to communicate nowadays would be a travesty. And that's part of a lot of the work why, for me, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Catholic TV, on their Catholic TV website, it's important to fill those spaces with good content.
Yes, that's why we're sitting here, Matt.
Yeah, no, I know.